Faithful watchers, as a gift of peace, I give you a review from my thoughts. The End of the World was conceived as a deliberately expensive spectacle to show off how much the new series of Doctor Who could do. Platform 1 was designed to be like a hotel for the most posh, richest and influential aliens in the universe. Russell T Davies stated that the character of Cassandra was inspired by beauty treatments that had been taken by female celebrities. Another function of the episode was to reveal that the Doctor is now the last of his people, that being the Time Lords. Many of the scenes taking place on Platform 1 were filmed at Welsh National Temple of Peace and Health, a non-religious civic building in Cardiff. Cassandra as a visual effect would be very complex in animating, with a lot of her lines having to be dropped, and the episode underrunning. To make up for the lost time, Davis wrote a scene between Rose and maintenance worker Raffaello, which were filmed in February 2005, nearly 5 months after principal filming had begun. Both Cassandra and the robot spiders were completely CGI, and the episode itself contains 203 visual effects shots that were completed in just 8 weeks. To give a bit of scale of how much that is, the Ridley Scott film Gladiator had about 100. Another notable concept the episode would introduce would be the Doctor's psychic paper, a gadget that would give him access to wherever he needed to go, with the paper telling the reader what the Doctor wanted. With all that out of the way, the plot involves the Doctor taking Rose to the year 5 billion, landing on Space Station Platform 1. They arrive for a party celebrating the end of the world, with the sun expanding an abandoned Earth. However, robot spiders disguised as gifts begin sabotaging functions on Platform 1, which disables the heat shields. Cassandra is discovered to be the perpetrator and plans to gain money from shares that Cassandra holds in the guests' rivals' companies that will increase in price after their death. When she escapes, it's up to the Doctor and sentient tree Jabe to restore the heat shields and save the guests from the end of the world. As you can tell, the episode aimed to try and push the boundaries of Doctor Who's brand new special effects, with this taking place in the far future, of course. Does it succeed? Well, if I could sum up my thoughts on the end of the world, it would be hit and miss. Don't get me wrong, there is stuff to like about this episode, but half the time the episode feels quite lacking. The episode's concept is pretty cool. Alien guests watching the Earth being roasted as entertainment. It's almost similar to how humanity would be like thousands of years ago when they would watch humans fight each other for their own amusement, an example being the Roman Colosseum. It's a good idea, but it's kind of let down by the execution of its mystery. The problem I have is that the villain is way too obvious. We already know it's Cassandra because she's the only one who gets any sort of lines or character development. So when the fingers point to her and say, "Oh, aha, it's you," it just feels unearned and a bit of a waste of time because it's painfully obvious on who the saboteur is. It doesn't make the Doctor or anyone else look intelligent when we, the viewers, already know the answer. It's like being a sixth form student taking a class for year 7s. It's not exactly fun because we know the answer to the problem that's been set out for us. As for the Doctor this episode, Chris Eccleston continues to shine, often nailing the comedic moments.
I think that's amazing. You want to see the bill?
That line never fails to make me laugh. I love his little dance as well to Tainted Love that has now become an infamous gif. It's such a small moment, but it just makes the Ninth Doctor's character for me someone who would enjoy this world-ending event with the other aliens, because he himself is an alien, but also making sure that Rose is settling in alright because she's 5 billion years from home and she's about to see her home planet be destroyed. But as the Doctor, he's also allowed to be pretty ruthless and dark. For example, at the end, he teleports Cassandra back to answer for her crimes, and she dries out and literally rips apart because of the heat. Even though Rose says help her, the Doctor allows her to die. He doesn't save her, reasoning that everything has its time. I loved this moment, as the Doctor being the last of his species, and whole species and races, and even his own die out due to time. It basically says everyone and everything owes a death at one point, even if you do try to escape it with plastic surgery. My Christopher Eccleston moment of the week has to be the very ending of the episode when he takes Rose back to the present day Earth and explains who he is. He is now the last of the Time Lords, with his planet being in a war with an enemy he doesn't mention, relating this event to the end of the world. We all think that this is going to last forever, but it won't. This easily could have been a huge exposition dump that may have bored the audience with backstory, but Eccleston takes this speech and performs it beautifully. When speaking about the war, you can see in his eyes that he's almost reliving it again. That's the sign of a good actor, in my opinion. Someone who can take a character background of exposition and turn it into something that comes from the heart. Or in this case, the Doctor's hearts. Furthermore, what I also love about this ending is asking Rose whether she does want to carry on travelling. She's not too sure, but the Doctor agrees to have Chips with her. I like this moment because the Doctor is allowed to have a very human moment, something he rarely has being an alien. It's also symbolic of how something so small and familiar like the smell of chips, it can remind us of what we call home and what we associate with it. As for Rose, I like her a bit more in this one than I do in her first episode. I particularly like her phoning her mum 5 billion years into the past with the Doctor's upgrade of the phone. It's such a random conversation that she has with Jackie, but it works in this context as, from Rose's point of view, her mum is dead and she's making calls into the past. It's pretty relatable because if we were there and we phoned people who are important to us back home, what would we say to them in this situation? It's so random, but it's so relatable as well. My favourite moment of her, though, has to be her sadness when the Earth is blown up. Everyone was too busy saving themselves on Platform 1 that nobody watched. 5 billion years of Earth history and no one was there to see it end. Billie Piper nails this moment. Everything she was originally from is all gone, and you really feel her remorse. It's great. However, I do take issue with her conversation with Cassandra, arguing that Rose herself is the last human being, whereas Cassandra is just lipstick and skin. I don't know what it is, but the moment just didn't sit right with me. It's almost like Rose travelled all that way just to pick a fight. It just seemed a bit too mean and kind of on the nose for me. If that scene is alright for you, great, but it just came across as a little bit too mean for me. From a production standpoint, again, it's kind of hit and miss for me. The practical effects are pretty so-so. Costume and effects like the Mox of Balhoun, the Forest of Cheam, the Face of Bo, and computer effects like Cassandra, they all look pretty good. They're all unique aliens that are pretty impressive to look at visually. Furthermore, the makeup on the Steward and Raffaello, that's pretty good as well. They just feel really alien. I also enjoy Cassandra as a villain, and when you think about it, it is more or less a commentary on plastic surgery and what happens when it's taken too far. While her plan is more or less motivated by money, it's a bit cliched, but I think it's a nice dig at the rich and capitalism, as the guest's death will result in triple shares for her, and she dies a pretty painful death. No commentary in the slightest. Furthermore, Zoe Wanamaker's voice gives the character such a vile personality. She's full of herself and is all the more rewarding when she gets her comeuppance. You can tell why these shots were the most visually complex to create, and why a lot of her performance did end up on the cutting room floor. The best makeup for me, though, has to go to the Forest of Cheam. They really look like walking trees. The makeup is just top-notch for me. I was particularly sad when Jabe died. The Doctor's survival as the last of the Time Lords inspired her to help him, knowing she'd burn when the heat came through, but she would help the Doctor no matter what. She believes that his existence and survival is remarkable, and she will help him to save the guests no matter what. The same can't be said for the other costumes. They look really cheap and as if they were hurriedly put together from the BBC's wardrobe department. Heck, I'd argue that the alien delegates from the 1972 story The Curse of Peladon had better costumes, despite the time period that was made in. I mean, look at the walking birds. They look like the depressed relatives of Big Bird from Sesame Street. The adherents of the repeated mean are also pretty naff, as they're just black sheets that even a little kid could dress up as, though in fairness it would be a pretty cheap cosplay at Comic-Con. However, the CGI effects used for when the Earth is destroyed is visually pretty impressive, considering it's 14 years ago. The lighting and colours look great, and as a kid I'd watch it in slow-mo and frame by frame. It was that cool to see, slowly but surely as the Earth blows up. The green screen effects for the giant fans has dated a bit, but I like the idea of using a traditional fan to keep the temperature down. It's all part of the retro feel. 5 billion years into the future, and we still go retro. Though on a serious note, who, when designing Platform 1, decided that the switch for the heat shield should be on the other side of the massive fans?
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
As for the soundtrack, Murray Gold continues to shine in this episode. I particularly love the use of Rose's theme at the end of the episode. It really helps the best scene of the episode shine for me. The music is also put to good use during the climax. It racks up the tension, and I really couldn't imagine the ending without it. It's appropriately used without feeling too intrusive like it did in the previous episode a bit. Another criticism I do have of this episode is the comedy. It's kind of hit and miss for me again. Unless it comes from the Doctor, and that's not to say the other characters should be unable to do comedy, but it just doesn't get much of a laugh from me. Like Cassandra mistaking a jukebox for an iPod, it just seems old and tested, like that joke's been done so many times before. And playing Britney Spears as toxic while the Doctor tries to save the steward just seems really out of place. I mean, what next? Playing Voodoo Child during a horrible alien invasion conducted by the Doctor's arch nemesis? Forget I said anything. Steward panicking after addressing the guest in a calm demeanour also feels old and obvious. I mean, do you get it? He's obviously not remaining calm despite putting on an act for the guests. Too easy, Russell. Just too easy. So, in conclusion, The End of the World is the definition of hit and miss. Whenever I think of something good, I think of something bad. The visual effects are half and half, the comedy only gets a laugh from me if it comes from the Doctor, and the idea is good, just poorly executed. Though despite my grievances, I wouldn't call this episode god-awful, just okay. As episodes that are centred around First Companion trip in the TARDIS, I think there are a lot more that are better, but that's not to say that The End of the World isn't without its merits. Well everyone, that's all from me. Be sure to like and share, let me know in the comments below what you thought of The End of the World, and I shall see you all next time.